Welcome to the Navy Memorial SITREP Speaker Series, where we bring you the latest insights on the U.S. Navy, the sea services, and global maritime operations. Thank you very much for joining us for this month's program. We're live here at the Navy Memorial's Arleigh and Roberta Burke Theater. As you know, the mission here at the Navy Memorial is to honor, recognize, and celebrate the men and women of the sea services, past, present, and future, and to inform the public about their service. With all that is going on in the world today, the sea services have never been more important to the nation's security and prosperity. And so we're really leaning into the fourth verb in our mission, inform. Whether it's through events like our most recent Bridgewing chat on maritime security operations, where we had Jim Kilby, our vice chief, here last week, our new Maritime Industrial Base interactive exhibit, or our youth and education programs like our Sea Service interns and the Junior Sailor program, we're really trying hard to make sure that the public knows about what the sea services are doing and how critical their support is to our sailors, our Marines, our Coast Guardmen, and our merchant mariners, and also to the foundry that supports them. So today we're going to hear about both the fleet and the foundry during this SITREP. We're live, we're interactive, we're on the record, and as you can see, you can ask questions on the platform, and I will select those questions from the audience as we progress. So please do send in your questions. This afternoon, we're truly honored to be joined by one of the Navy's top leaders and an old and valued friend and shipmate, Vice Admiral Jim Downey, Commander of Naval Sea Systems Command, or NAVSEA, and as the Navy's largest systems command, NAVSEA has traditionally been responsible for designing, building, delivering, and maintaining the ships, submarines, and systems that keep our fleet ready and lethal. He's also recently been stood up as a program acquisition executive as the service continues to reform how it buys and sustains platforms and equipment. He will lead the PAE industrial operations, overseeing maintenance and our public shipyards. So Admiral Downey, it's just such a pleasure to have you here today. As we reflect on everything that's going on, we were talking a little bit about what's going on around the globe. I can't think of a better leader to walk us through and understanding how things look from both the fleet and the foundry and the evolving acquisition landscape. And I'm certain that we'll have a lot of questions about that. But before I tell you a little bit more about Admiral Downey, I do want to thank our great series sponsor, Navy Mutual. Navy Mutual provides affordable life insurance and annuities to those who serve or have served our nation, and to our series co-sponsor, Ocean Infinity, who creates innovative robotic technology to transform operations at sea to enable people and the planet to thrive. We couldn't accomplish what we do here at the Navy Memorial with programs to include our SITREP series without their support or the support of so many of you that are watching the program today. So thank you. Now let me tell you a little bit more about our guest. Vice Admiral Jim Downey is a native of New York and a graduate of the State University of New York in Albany and the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. As NAVSEA, he leads a global workforce of more than 75,000 military and civilian personnel. NAVSEA is responsible for the design, construction, delivery, maintenance, and modernization of the Navy's ships, submarines, and systems, ensuring that our fleet remains ready, capable, and lethal. And over the course of his career, Admiral Downey, who started, I'm proud to say, as a SWO onboard USS Haler, DDD 997, before transitioning to engineering duty, has held a number of key leadership positions to include flag tours as the Commander, Navy Regional Maintenance Center, and NAVSEA's Deputy Commander for Surface Warfare, the Program Executive Officer for Aircraft Carriers, and Special Assistant to the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Research, Development, and Acquisition. Admiral, I know it's been a busy year, given all that's going on. You making the time amidst a pressurized schedule means a lot to us. And as we look at the FY27 budget, what we're starting to hear I understand the largest shipbuilding budget since 1962. It promises to only get busier and only get more exciting. So again, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Admiral, for your prior service and continued service here with the Memorial, and thank you very much to the Memorial for giving me this opportunity to sit down with you. John hit on a good portion or description of my part of the enterprise. Yeah, we are very, very active in shipbuilding. There are 80 ships under contract to be built. The yards are very busy. Multiple destroyers, cruisers, submarines and amphibs, and a lot of work to do there. We're very focused on rebuilding that industrial base from both a supplier standpoint as well as the employees and affecting that workforce. So 80 ships under contract to be built over this next few years. A significant amount of work there, as well as the growth with the Golden Fleet. So we're very focused on those efforts. For me, that's across the enterprise. I have about 42 locations around the globe and 26 major subordinate commands involved, from research and development, maintenance and modernization, new construction, and all of that in service support. So I'll talk more about that as we go. Yes, in Navy, it seems like we're always very busy. We are really busy. I'm in my 40th year in service. That was never the plan, but it has
Your
become the plan.
expected service life was,
4 years. Yeah. Well, yeah, 4 years active, 4 years reserve. Didn't plan to be an engineering duty officer. Was pretty straight stick SWO, and then some changes as we got to about 10 years in or so. But what a great experience running, be involved in that enterprise. That's about 50 to 70 billion a year. Comes through NAVSEA, the largest systems command, when you count all the programs and all of those activities. To today, about 80 ships under contract, about 46 in major C&O avails. I'll talk more on that and how we're doing there as we go on and get into the questions. Globally, though, as we've all been focused on Indo-PACOM and other theaters for multiple years, we've had very active work, of course, off of South America. Think forward a couple months ago, and now where we are in the Middle East. In the Middle East, we've really been in a situation, although we had a bit of a break last year, really this goes back to fall of 23. So we've been in pretty much 24/7 watch operations since dealing with all those Houthi issues and thousands of encounters for our warships. I'll share with you, for those who build the ships, operate the ships, all the systems, the ships have really performed miraculously, or as designed in those forward areas via our sailors. So very, very active there. I mentioned Ford off of Venezuela. Of course, her and other strike groups are out in the Middle East now. Ford is about to break Abraham Lincoln's longest deployment ever.
Not a record you necessarily want to break.
No.
Yeah.
A bit under 300 days.
Wow.
Ford is about 288, 290 right now, and still operating. So those ships are designed to kind of, as you know, sustain operations for a very long time. The ship and the crew doing fabulous there. And we'll see as we pivot strike groups here in a bit how, when she comes home. And of course, she'll roll right into a maintenance period and we'll be working on her again. I just reflect on that because just a few years ago, we were in the Make Ford Ready effort. And now she's essentially in her third-ish deployment and doing great work.
A quick aside, you must be very proud of your time as PEO aircraft carriers. When you look at the sortie generation rate, you look at the changes that were made, it's really turned out well.
Yeah, it has. And I long ago, I was the chief engineer for design at Ford. in the 2003 to 2007 timeframe. So when I got that direction in 2019 to get her finished and get her ready for deployment, that ship over an 18-month period, 9 months, a month at a time, 9 times underway, 30 days each, and nine 30-day periods in port. She did 250 days at sea over those 18 months, and I want to give a shout out to the Navy and industry team. We would bring over 300 shipyard workers on the ship at sea to finish the work and make sure she got ready for deployment. Back then in 2019, it's an easy number to remember when you think of aviation. She had about 747 sorties or cats and traps. Today, a few years later, she's well beyond 30,000. So those systems are performing well. So we'll see where Ford is here in a not too distant future as she comes back. All of that, though, is hitting on C&O and secretary priorities. You mentioned a bit, John, boundary, fleet, and fight are the C&O's pillars and focus areas. We are across all of that, and principally in the foundry area, of course. Our shipyards, our regional maintenance centers, our R&D centers, our in-service engineering activities, and C&O and Secretary have invested significantly in those efforts. And that is we are very focused on schedule adherence. As the C&O would say, it's not a future window. The fight is today or tonight, and we have to be ready. So you see billions of dollars in the industrial base investments, billions of dollars in our shipyard improvements on the naval shipyard side, and those efforts are well underway and starting to pay off. It also goes into the fleet and fight, though, of course, on enabling the ship and our sailors to be able to operate these systems. We've been very focused on that. C&O issued a task to us not too many months ago. We are reconstituting some of the past maintenance facilities. Many of you in the Navy will recognize the term SIMA, at Shore Intermediate Maintenance Facility or activity. We have reinitiated the stand-up of SIMA Norfolk and SIMA San Diego, and those commands will be active by 1 June, and globally we'll hit full operating capability here in the next couple of years. What that is about is the fleet to fight piece, or the intermediate level maintenance in the foundry. So that is to get sailors back to doing that maintenance. With all the different technical variants we have, that is really all about sailor proficiency, teaching them how to work on these very modern systems with multiple variants, so they can address that workload, not put all that out as depot level maintenance with other activities, but make sure sailors are doing that work, and then rotate back to sea in similar modes or roles to take care of the ships while they're operating. So really important effort there. So that's where some of the focus the C&O has had with me. On the Secretariat side, I know folks are hearing about the portfolio acquisition executive roles. That is really from Congress to the White House to SecWar to SecNav. That is really about putting acquisition on a war-fighting footing. The right authorities, planning, budgeting, and speed of action on reducing times for procurement, quite candidly, streamlining the command and control on that, and singling up on authorities for those PAEs, which will bring new organizations from a C2 and authority standpoint. For folks' jobs, other than maybe the pace of it, many of our folks in the field, in the waterfront and industry, will be doing the same things they're doing today, but will be focused on this decision-making speed, with the president's significant plus up to the budget. How do you get change approved? How do you get the engineering issues approved? How do you make sure you're not just in time on material, but you're just in case? You have plenty to go across the portfolio in a healthy manner. And that, of course, is very focused on industry as well. In our naval shipyards, we do the work on maintenance via government workers principally on subs and carriers. But all the other ships, you know, the other 2/3 of the Navy, industry does most of that heavy maintenance. So we're very focused on the hiring, wages, in the supplier base and stimulating all that. So it's not cliche to say it's a busy time.
Yeah.
It is a very busy time. And it's all about, from the Secretary's view, the business of the Navy, of getting these modern warfighting tools in the hands of our sailors as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah. I just have to say that, one, the scope, the scale is pretty amazing. The amount of money that's being channeled in is something that we have not seen in our careers, certainly. Maybe at the very, very beginning in the
Right.
build-up, for me anyway, to the 600-ship Navy. How are we doing? So you talked a little bit about the warfighting acquisition system reform. Is it, as we're working through the nuts and bolts of it, the interactions with the other PAEs, with the fleet, with OPNAV, what kind of changes will we see there?
Yeah, so you'll see there's been multiple PAEs initiated. PAE Maritime has all shipbuilding and a life cycle requirement there as well. So we have connected a bit of life cycle with the front end of new construction in that effort. So very glad to see that. So that is everything, including carriers, except for submarines. So Chris Miller has that PAE, my former executive director, and is off and running with all those former PEOs and senior civilians and their teams. I'll come back to that in a bit. And then Vice Admiral Rob Goucher has submarines. So he has Virginia, Los Angeles, Ohio, Columbia, again, full life cycle. And then the commands subordinate to those organizations who used to support the organizations, you will see the adjustment in those chains of command. So you will see the supervisor of shipbuilding in various areas in the Northeast, in the South, aligned to maritime directly, and you'll see subs involved in Electric Boat and Newport News, as well as carriers. So we're working through those changes in the chain of command, various memorandums of agreement being established for any areas that may be seam areas. How do I, on the industrial operations, support and get supported on life cycle and sustainment from maritime and subs? It's a bit of a different model, but I have clear authorities related to industrial ops. So very, very focused on that. Focused, the team is, and the MOAs, focused on the financial flow. Does it go directly to these PAEs versus multiple other offices in the past? Focused on changes in contract authority, making sure those PAEs have that authority, and some changes in technical authority as well, in a bit of a disbursement in many areas, while with naval reactors, that part remains the same as it had. And we work on all those supporting functions, contracting, HR, legal, financial. So you will see those efforts emerge here very soon. We're all on short tethers, I would say. So we'll have in-process reviews in the 30 to 45-day range. So we have one coming up on industrial ops, defining initial operating capability and then full operating capability. So it's not just activity. Those efforts are coming with measurements of needed performance. So we know where we are in new construction. We know where we are in maintenance, and we are reestablishing those schedule adherence requirements to make sure we're supporting these operational cycles.
Thanks for that. And as we look at those schedules and some of the changes that had been implemented to try and speed up some of that, I think someone that we both know, Tom Moore, had a question asking, how's the pilot going at Norfolk naval shipyard. Do you think this model will be applied to the other yards or go back to a more traditional approach as you head into being PAE industrial ops?
No, that's a great question from a former and still current shipmate. Good to hear that from Admiral Moore. For the team here, what the Admiral's referring to is this is something we worked on for more than a couple of years. And this was, first of all, the yards have many, many lines of effort. So Norfolk has about 16 lines of effort. That's different types of submarines. It's different types of maintenance on the submarines. It's carriers in 2 different classes, I level, D level, et cetera. It's running a foundry up in Philadelphia. It's taking care of other prototype sites. So when we say a shipyard, think for Norfolk over 10,000 people and 16 lines of effort. I'll come back to that model in a second. Then you have Hawaii, Pearl Harbor, and Portsmouth. Those are around 6,000 people each, about 40,000 across the whole shipyard enterprise. And the 2 other yards principally do fast attack submarine maintenance across and some level of inactivation across Virginia and Los Angeles, more focused than Norfolk. And then Puget is in the 18-plus lines of effort, a 15,000 person command that does many of the things Norfolk does, and some Seawolf work and some other special, some other I and D level work. And they operate out of Puget, but Puget is Puget, North Island, and Yokosuka. So they have a significant range there. The pilot in Norfolk is about, we've been very focused on Norfolk and Puget on the size of those yards and how we focus on getting things done on time. So we've looked at the command and control of Norfolk we've got very focused on it in the 23 timeframe. So where we've gone in Norfolk is not dissimilar from the past. Norfolk and Puget used to be flag commands. So we've taken a aviator who is former carrier CO and strike group commander, Hack, and we've put him in charge of Norfolk. And what we've done there is we were very focused on fast attack schedule adherence and a lot of work to do there. So we put another captain in with the civilian project lead for submarine maintenance. We've teamed that civilian up with a Navy captain, a submariner with significant maintenance background, not an engineering duty officer, but a submariner who was running maintenance over at Sub 4 essentially, and put him in charge of the submarine line. Then what we've done is, with me being a carrier background guy, we were focused on not starving out the carrier work with all this focus on submarines. So we did the same model over on carriers, but with this we put a EDO, an engineering duty officer who had experience there with the civilian. In all of that, there's also significant technical work, nuclear qualifications. So we also retained or put a captain in charge of industrial operations. So that's the model. What we're seeing out of the model is positive. So where we are is Bush was delivered at the end of 24 on time. Mm-hmm. And it was the first carrier in quite a few years on time, 7 years. Now the model was set up a bit before that, but a lot of that was the advanced planning to get that ship done. And now Hack and team are going to deliver Ike coming up here, potentially a couple days early, but on time. Wow. So we are seeing what we're seeing from the Admiral and his team is a view of being on the deck plate and see what he is experiencing, a different set of eyes. And he has a setup of 3 captains at the command level to go run those product lines where the captain on industrial ops supports the others and retain some of those qualifications. So positive examples. Our next pivot there would be most likely to Puget.
Okay.
So we'll watch as this PAEIO stands up, but we're looking at Puget. One effort we've already started at Puget is it's different on Pacific or Atlantic. On Atlantic, the TRF for our Trident refit down in Kings Bay isn't subordinate to the shipyard, but on the Pacific side it is, or it has been. So we're starting to separate that out for the TRF Bangor and model what we do on the East Coast to also free up some bandwidth for the commanding officer there, who has, you know, the 3 locations and 15,000 folks. I don't have a timeline yet. Some of this will be we got to go through the reorganizations, as I was mentioning, but we are seeing positive returns in Norfolk, and Puget would be the next target.
Yeah, no, that is great. And then pivoting a little bit from the public shipyards to the private side, George Mutafas from Fincantieri has a question. Are you expecting to manage initiatives as PAE Industrial Ops to help support the MRO industrial base, or will your focus remain on the public yards and the Navy MRO assets, and/or this type of initiative will fall on the surface and submarine, the maritime, and the sub-PAEs? How will that fall out?
No, I'll have me and my team and my successors will have all of the maintenance and modernization, planning and execution. So the 7 regional maintenance centers, those 3 detachments, the 4 naval shipyards, that's a group of over 40,000 people. So almost half of all of NAVSEA. There's been initiatives ongoing there as well for several years. I'm pretty proud to say, you know, from where we were maybe a decade or so ago, in the last 3 to 4 years, the on-time delivery overall has more than doubled in a positive way. It's so good returns there, and more to do. Our focus there on the industrial base, there's many aspects of this. So making sure the planning is done appropriately, well in advance, including industry in that planning process, awarding those contracts much earlier than we were. 10 years ago, about 30 days before the C&O avail, moved to 120 days over the last 5 years or so. And now we are awarding contracts 180 days to a year ahead of the C&O avail. Some of that was impossible to do in the past when you think about maintenance money, annual money. So several years ago, we worked with Congress, and we were able to use, in many cases, 3-year money, OPN money. So that has allowed more advanced planning, earlier procurement of the material, and earlier awards of those contracts. Those are some of the macro items on schedule. The other ones we're looking at is we spent time with industry on best commercial practices in other maritime sectors. Think cruise vessels, and what we've found there is their availabilities are much shorter than ours. You may see somebody with 80,000-ton ships. The longest avail they may have, and some would think they're different than our warships. Not a whole lot. Their longest avails are 30 days, and 0 days of delay in the last decade. So we have been working hard on an effort we refer to as Task Force Greyhound on the East Coast. 150-day avails on DDGs. The last run was 9 out of 10 on time or early. We are now starting our first 2 on the West Coast. Some would pivot to Yeah, but then you're not doing the deeper maintenance. Not the case. So we track that via our life cycle health assessments. So we are looking at the avails, what needs to be done when related to the class maintenance plan. How do we break it up into a different approach for industry? How do we award earlier? And then we're trying to be very clear on the importance of schedule. So we've added to multiple contracts, and it is very important for us on certain avails. We are adding in multiple $1 million schedule incentives in the 15 million range to meet or beat the schedule. We're trying to be clear on the importance here. We have leveraged the carrier world on change approval and in other related areas that we've seen from carriers, and we're pushing some of that over into the submarine world. One key factor that we've found there working with industry is the cruise line, for example, won't schedule conflicting work during the availability. What that means is if you go in a dock, you work the hull, shaft, props, hubs, you don't overhaul the engines. Because if the engines don't have to be done in dock, and if they're not done on time, you're not getting out of the dock. So we've developed what we refer to as a pit stop approach. So we're contracting with those folks who say work on diesels, and we've added smaller avails that we refer to as CMAV, 6-weekers, and we do this pit stop approach. Bring them in, overhaul the engines, and remove that conflict from the docking or the avail. So a lot of emphasis there. The last one I'll hit on quickly is amphibs. We are very focused on ensuring we meet our requirements for the Marine Corps. And there, we kind of have two flavors. You have three flavors. You have LPDs, which are very similar on track records to large deck amphibs that aren't steamships. And then the steam-based ones are ones where we have challenges. In part, the age of the ships. Another issue is that industry has shrunk. We've had dedicated contracting to secure those that work in steam, davits, cranes, these challenge areas that we have, to make sure that part is not questionable, right, and not leave that up to have the prime contractors try to figure out how do they secure those folks. So more initiatives than we probably have time for today, but exciting and well teamed with the Marine Corps and industry.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been a great discussion so far. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. We'll have a chance to get into one of my favorite topics, which is workforce. And then as well to talk a little bit more about some of the advanced manufacturing and what you're bringing online. We have some great questions coming in, so please keep those coming. And again, thanks for the discussion thus far, and we'll see all of you right after the break.
Members due can be dangerous, and while the military offers life insurance coverage, it might not go far enough for you. With Navy Mutual, you can rest assured that you have the coverage you need. Life insurance lets you choose the way forward. We have options for term and permanent coverage and have no active duty service or aviation restrictions. No matter which branch of the military you belong to, you're welcome here. We serve active duty service members, retirees, veterans, and their families. Protect the futures of your loved ones.
Navy Memorial's it's like home. It's like a little place you can come and remember what it means to be an American.
There is no place on earth that you can be part of, certainly across our joint force, that has more career opportunity than the Navy.
So welcome back, and now we're going to turn to the workforce. So as we look at what's affected the workforce here over the last few decades, some would say wage stagnation, vocational training gaps, what the educational priorities have been. Can you talk a little bit about what your view is there? And then maybe we can go ahead and pivot to some of the things you're looking at to help address those challenges.
Sure. Thanks, John. I'll hit on wages and then kind of the demand signal that affects the recruiting and retention of folks. So if we reflect on the Reagan era, in the 80s, many of these positions, pipe fitters, welders, et cetera, those entry-level positions were approximately 4 to 5 times minimum wage as you come through the mid-80s. Today, or until recently, in many of these areas, those positions were about 1.5 times minimum wage, with a shrinking supply, as the nation has emphasized, college degrees and all sorts of other things, and maybe less so vocational efforts or education. So we have been very focused on that this last year or so. And in certain contracts in shipbuilding, we have worked with industry to affect those wages positively. I'll give an example of what a certain percent may mean, so the audience can get their mind around. You could go to, you start raising that, the price of things are going to go up. So I'll give you this example. If you have a $4 billion ship you're building, in all of those areas I was mentioning, if you raise their pay, their wages, 25% for all of those, that level of worker across multiple different trades, 25% pay increase, the cost of the ship goes up 1%. It's $4 billion and $40 million. And that doesn't account for any schedule improvement you may see by the motivation of a 25% pay increase. So a lot of these folks they start off in the 20s, 20-some dollars an hour. Similarly, it's not that different in the naval shipyard. So people might think, hey, you want to go from industry and go over to one of the naval shipyards. It's a government job. It's more secure. It's better. There's not a huge difference there. And we do not see a lot of that movement over time. So on the industry side, we're really trying to work closely with our prime shipbuilders and make sure we've structured the contract to where we can do what is needed to motivate the workers and us get the ships quicker. In the end, that should drive the price down a bit. On the public shipyard side, we see their pay isn't significantly higher, and that's a larger structure to work across all of those various unions and government entities, and we're working those areas. We've also gone for incentives for the project team. If you hit or beat your milestone, there are incentives built in our shipyards that team gets paid more. Specific bonuses for meeting or beating the schedule. The other area we've seen on the public yard side is we haven't had master craft levels in some time in some of these trade areas. So we're bringing those back so that they can stay in that work and be that master craftsman instead of somewhat moving more into a support job or using the terms of blue collar and white collar, moving more to a white collar support job or other job. We are working to incentivize folks with the pay structure to stay in those vocational areas and be those experts overseeing the work. In the larger effort here, so what does that look like on hiring and retention and all of that? And what are we doing about that? Over the next 5 to 6 years, as I talked to the 80 ships, there's more ships on top of the 80 via the great effort going on with the Golden Fleet. To support that build in total, that's about 200,000 folks have to be hired over the next 5 to 6 years. So we are really focused, as you were in other tours, on the recruiting of those folks right into the elementary schools and working with various regions around the country to resurrect some of those vocational programs and work in that training, recruiting, retaining effort. Attrition has improved post-COVID. So I would say it's generally it's come down in most there. It's stabilized and has reduced over the last couple of years. The other big effort, though, there with the Golden Fleet effort is that sends a clear, steady demand signal. So as I came into carriers in 2019, we, the larger nation, had changed schedules in both refueling complex overhaul for GW, for George Washington, and when we're buying the next carrier. And what that did is it caused companies to have to release people, thousands of people, which then drove the experience base to much less than it was in the past. It would not be uncommon, regardless of yard, to have a large percent of the yard with 2 years or less experience. So that is, we've been very, very focused on buying centers for the ships, what years you buy in, and multiple quantities.
How do you give some stability?
Yes, yes. Very similar on the maintenance side. So in the maintenance side, you're dealing with the 300 ships, you're dealing with op cycles and changes, you're dealing with whether ships are on the decom list or off the decom list, and any deferrals, which is not a large part of the ships, but it's a churn. So we are very focused there on things like our surface ship master plan scheduling, where we are trying to do a bit more than level load the regions, level load with a bit of a positive increasing slope. So in that effort, working with the SWOBOS and others, we've been able to work together on percent changes per year, as in, hey, we can't go more than this percent above or below because that really disturbs that part of industry. So those are some of the areas we're really focused on: the recruiting, the bonuses, the wage increases, really good training programs in a lot of these larger yards, pipelines set up via the Maritime Industrial Base, places like Danville and other centers from Ohio to Virginia and other regions that help us produce this pipeline. It is really the key for the Navy part of partnering with industry on how do we get stability here.
Yeah, I mean, it really is going to take a village. We're very proud that we have the new Maritime Industrial Base exhibit that shows the jobs in the foundry, shows the welders or the pipe fitters or the naval architects.
Right.
But why don't let's finish off the workforce piece with one question. You talked to the bonuses and how you're dialing that in. Master Chief Retired Flora asked whether or not you'd had enough run time yet with those bonuses to see where the metrics are going, especially in regards to submarine construction and overhauls.
Yeah, I'll Master Chief, I'll come back to construction. I'll hit overhaul and repair. We're a bit over a year into those bonuses. We are improving on schedule adherence, especially in our surface combatants, in our SSNs, in Pearl, and in Portsmouth. So only a year or so of returns. Think about how long these projects are. Some of them are a couple years, so they haven't played out significantly, but we are seeing positive returns in two of the really important areas for us. On construction, so the construction part is the wage increases, and those efforts were added to the contracts a bit after the bonuses. So we only have runtime there since the fall. The time will tell, but we do see positive improvement on recruiting and retention. We've also affected some of the requirements on hiring. Some of these processes take quite a long time. So the companies, as well as the Navy, has been very, very focused on reducing that. So Master Chief, a bit to go. Got about a year on the public shipyards, initial positive returns, and I expect we're going to see the same in the private yards, but it'll take another year or so to see what that produces.
Great. And Master Chief, thank you for that question. Let's turn to the advanced technologies, advanced manufacturing. Can you talk to us a little bit about how those technologies can help revitalize the base, and then maybe a couple examples of where you're seeing that in run and the difference it's making?
Yes, yeah, great question, John. It is certainly a huge interest area across leadership. Some of these technologies are not brand new. It's our embracing of them and getting them out there. So where we are focused on some of those technologies is affecting our work on the ships where we have growth work. So think about one of the most significant contributor to schedule overrun is unplanned work, by far. It's a bigger contributor candidly, than poor performance. So unplanned work is when you find things you didn't plan to work on. Where is that? Tanks, voids, the hull once it's out of the water. So we've been very focused in those areas. So we have some technologies that can look at the hull waterborne now and do some of those initial assessments. We have technologies now, and I'll use the USS America as an example. 2 years ago, as I was working through with the team in Japan and San Diego with the SWOBOS, we were getting ready for an avail that recently started now. So we're 1.5 to 2 years ahead of the avail. We're about 20% through that availability right now. But 2 years ago, we had about 130 what we refer to as open and inspects, tanks and other areas, ventilation areas, ducting, the exhaust of the ship that we were, that typically we would have done all we could on assessments ahead of time, and then we would have found what we found when the ship came in to whatever yard won that contract. We employed some technologies with NRL, Naval Research Lab, a system that allows us to insert the capability in a tank without pumping down the tank and without gas freeing the tank. So think about this. America was then a 7th Fleet ship. So we were able to go into our large deck amphib in 7th Fleet, working with the 7th Fleet commander, and get after the majority of those tanks. So when she has come in, she's being worked on the West Coast, she's at 20% through, and she has less than 1% unplanned work. So
pretty remarkable.
Yeah, we are trying to. The hardest one there is submarines, and that's a different animal. But we are trying to employ that across the board. These aren't expensive technologies. Getting access to most surface ships is possible. So we are very, very focused on technologies that remove unplanned work. The other big topic is additive manufacturing. Let me share where we are there. That has gone from in Navy, so industry in many manufacturing areas is well ahead of many of us. But where that's gone in Navy is from research and development and science to we have about 300 components in subs now and 1,000, on surface ships that have been that have been manufactured by printing the component. It's almost easier to get it into new construction than it is in service. So we take it through a process of new construction. We might have to document a departure because it isn't the exact thing, but it meets all the requirements. So our focus is really exploding that and doing more of that where possible. A bit of well, our goal here, working very closely with Naval Supply Command, Systems Command, is to affect that process so we can buy those components quicker for in-service, meaning the related technical data packages, and get the pipeline going on pumping those parts out and get them in nav subsens shelves on the ships as spares. And it's starting to pay off, but we have a long way to go there.
So as we look at just about all of what we're talking about, we also need the data to support where we want to take risk, where we're going to apply some of the new kinds of capabilities you've described. Great question from Kyle Bolhorst from Google, as you might imagine, about data. And so he says, Admiral, much of the data needed to accelerate ship design and repair is currently siloed across legacy systems. From your perspective, what's the biggest cultural or technical hurdle to creating a unified data fabric that would allow AI to truly speed up the design to delivery pipeline?
Yeah, no, great question. And for the group, let me share as I go into the answer on that, why that's important. We have done thousands and thousands of avails, as you can see, availabilities, maintenance availabilities. Historically, as you go through the effort, although you work the planning and you work against the milestones set, many of the project reviews are history lessons. They're lagging indicators. There's not a whole lot you can do when you're running the project. You see where you are. As you see 40 of these projects going on globally, a bit of a challenge to be on the left side of that lagging indicator. So we are very, very focused on predictive indicators. So we are working across Navy with some elements of industry on those data silos. In part of my portfolio, or the NAVSEA and shipbuilding portfolio, there's about 92 of those data areas. In 24, we converted 48 of them into what we'll refer to as a secure cloud capability, and many more in 25, so that we can get access. What we're requiring in the reviews now in planning and execution is analogy or direct comparison to all of those avails that have been executed in a more comprehensive way. So where we need to work on that is, you can imagine these infrastructures, private shipyard, public shipyard, there's many different IT systems. So instead of bottom up, we're really working on a top-down approach on how you scan through those databases, those silos that are hopefully not silos anymore, and run those tools to produce the predictive indicators for the team, to avoid obvious holdups and errors. We have a significant effort on the submarine side over with Newport News and EB. There's a reference there to Ship OS that is also scaling into some of our public shipyards as well. So I think the question is absolutely where we need to be focused here on the future, and be more well-informed on these risk decisions, rather than the good old effort of just get it done. The data is very telling when you get after it in a predictive way. Absolutely.
So one last question from another old shipmate of ours, Herm Schlansky. Under the new PAE structure, when will those of us in the civilian sector be able to see the new org chart and entry point for new innovative technology?
New org chart. So I'll stay in my area of industrial ops. As we talk about IOC and FOC, in one area, I would say we're at FOC. We've been doing maintenance forever. The difference is the authority lineup and the planning. So what you will see is a series of org updates here in my portion. It will be you will see an alignment focused on authorities. You will see potentially some specific changes on planning activities and how they align, potentially on how the budgets change, in who the budgets align under. So think of the congressional language in the NDAA and how we align against those. So we are working those org charts right now. It'll be a phase. You will see a change in the future of how we are integrating and running Pacific Atlantic. That's months or more down the road. For insertion of technology, it's I would tell you, from the tooling of the shipyards to some of the additive manufacturing, this has been going on for several years. In the industrial base, there's been in the order of $10 billion invested in the maritime industrial base. So those efforts are happening. I think the key to look for is, schedule adherence. How are we going to improve, significantly improve schedule adherence? And again, that goes to incentivizing industry and do the planning with our naval shipyards and make sure we're ready for those avails.
It always comes back to the partnerships.
Yes.
And we certainly have partners with a lot more questions here that I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to get to, but we'll get Admiral Downey back for another SITREP or a fantail breakfast,
Sure.
or one of our other events. But Admiral, I just have to say, as someone who I've known for a long time, thank you. Thanks for your leadership at such a critical time. Thanks for this SITREP. I think when you look at what's going on for the Navy, for the nation, we're proud of what our sailors are doing. But it is the Foundry that makes that possible, and you're really leading that effort. So thank you, sir.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the effort. Thanks for leading us through this. And really thanks to the Navy Memorial for all the service, for those on duty and those used to be on duty, and all of those supporting us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, sir. And so for all of you, the weather is warming up, and so we've had a great SITREP, but we have a lot of events that are going to be coming up. So we would love for all of you who are watching to join us in person or online for all of our events. This Saturday, we'll welcome in the spring season here with the blessing of the fleet, where we will be blessing the ships and crews at sea for their safety and protection by charging the fountains on the granite sea with water collected from the 7 seas and the Great Lakes. It is pretty cool. If you haven't seen it, come on down and take a look. You can see here 2 of our great shipmates collecting water from Indo-PACOM and the Great Lakes. So we actually do collect this water. The ceremony will also be live streamed. So if you can't join us in person, I would encourage you to join us online. But if you are here in the D.C. area, please come on down. We'll also have the White House mess providing their traditional Navy bean soup. I'd also like to make sure that you're tracking the other special gatherings that are going to be coming up here over the summer. We have our annual wreath-laying ceremonies as well as our concerts on the Avenue. And so all of these are very, very special events that you will have a chance to participate in. And we're excited that now our SITREP speaker series is reaching an even wider audience. I shared with the Admiral that we've now launched the Navy Memorial podcast, so you can catch past conversations with distinguished guests anytime, anywhere on your schedule, and it's a great way to stay connected. So please join us online to do that. So we really appreciate what your support makes possible as we celebrate the nation's 250th birthday. Remember that we are right here on Pennsylvania Avenue and right across from the National Archives. And if you're not a member, we would encourage you to become a member. We really appreciate your support. So shipmates, we hope that you have a great Navy Day. Admiral Downey, thanks again to you. And I know that we are all thinking of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who are deployed downrange. We pray for their safety, but we're sure glad that they've got the right kit to get the job done. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, John.